The market on the alien world was filled with noise, bright colors, and strange smells. Merchants shouted for customers, guards walked with weapons in hand, and slaves were pushed on display. But among all cages, one cage was different. Inside sat a small alien girl, her skin pale and glowing, her eyes shining like fire. No one came close to her. Even the cruelest traitors kept their distance. The people whispered about her. They called her cursed. No one can touch her. If you try, you will turn into dust. An old merchant told a young boy. The boy laughed, but when he saw ashes scattered near her cage, his laughter stopped. Fear filled the market, yet curiosity grew stronger. Everyone wanted to see the cursed girl, but no one wanted to risk their life. She sat silently, her chains heavy, her body thin. Her face was not cruel, not angry, but filled with deep sadness. She did not shout. She did not beg. She only looked down as if waiting for an end that never came. Some said she had been in that cage for years, never touched, never freed, never loved. A living prisoner, feared like death itself. Then came the human. He was a traveler, a soldier by past, but now wandering for work. He walked into the market, strong eyes scanning the cages. He had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but nothing like her. The moment his gaze fell on the girl, his steps slowed. "Who is she?" he asked the nearest trader. The alien trader hissed, "Do not ask, human. She is death itself. One touch and you will vanish." But the human did not laugh or walk away. Instead, he stood longer, staring at her thin figure, her glowing eyes, her quiet sadness. She did not look like a monster. She looked like someone abandoned, alone, broken. The crowd began to notice him. Whispers filled the air. Does he not fear the cursed girl? Foolish human, he will die if he goes near. But the human only tilted his head, studying her carefully. He saw her trembling hands, her dry lips, her fragile body that seemed too weak to even stand. Her eyes lifted slowly, meeting his. For the first time, her lips moved, her voice soft, broken, almost like a ghost. "Don't touch me," she whispered. The human froze. Her voice was not deadly. It was not cruel. It was filled with pain, a warning not for herself, but for him. He felt his heart pound, not from fear, but from sorrow. Why did she sound more like a prisoner than a monster? Why did her chains look heavier than her so-called curse? The more he stared, the stronger the thought grew in his mind. This girl was not a curse, she was a victim. And yet the ashes near her cage told a different story. They whispered of men who had tried, men who had failed, men who had turned to dust in seconds. The danger was real, the curse was real, or so the galaxy believed, but the human could not look away. It was as if something invisible pulled him closer. The girl lowered her head again, her voice trembling. "Leave before it is too late," she said. But the human did not leave. He stood still, his eyes locked on her. The market was loud, yet in that moment, there was silence between a cursed alien girl and a human who refused to turn away. The human walked away from the cage at first, but her eyes followed him. He tried to shake the feeling off, but her voice, her whisper, echoed inside his head. "Don't touch me." Those words refused to leave his mind. He had fought wars, seen machines burn, and watched soldiers fall, yet never had 3 small words shaken him so deeply. That night, he sat in the broken inn near the market. The place was filled with drunk merchants and guards, their laughter cold and sharp. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, not the cursed girl people spoke of, but the sad child locked in chains. He remembered the ashes near her cage, the whispers of fear, the way her body trembled. Was it true? Or just a lie told again and again until the galaxy believed it? He drank a cup of bitter water and asked the innkeeper, "Who is she really, that girl in the cage?" The innkeeper spat on the floor. "A cursed thing, human. Her own kind abandoned her. No one dares go near unless they want to be dust in." "The wind," the human frowned. "But she spoke to me." The innkeeper's eyes widened. She spoke. Are you sure? Many say she never speaks. Not a word, not even a cry. The human nodded slowly, but the doubt grew stronger in his chest. If she had a curse, why warn him? Why not let him die like the rest? If she wanted to kill, she could have stayed silent, but instead she begged him to leave. That did not sound like a monster. That sounded like someone desperate to protect others, even from herself. He returned to the market the next morning. The guards laughed when they saw him. Back again? Human. Want to test your luck? Go touch her. We will sweep your ashes later. The human ignored them, his eyes searching the cage. The girl sat there, her head lowered, as if she had not moved all night. Why do you stare? One merchant asked. No one has ever survived a touch from her. The human pointed to the pile of ashes. Who were they? The merchant grinned. Fools, traitors, hunters. One even tried to kiss her. Ha! He vanished, before his lips even touched. The laughter stung the human's ears, but the doubt burned brighter inside him. When no one watched, he stepped closer. The guards shouted, Careful, human. One step more and you're gone. But he ignored them, his boots pressing into the dust-covered ground. He stopped only. A few feet from the cage, the girl lifted her head slowly. Her glowing eyes locked with his, and for a moment he swore he saw tears. Why do you keep coming back? She whispered, her voice softer than the wind. The human's chest tightened. He had no answer. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was pity, maybe it was something else he could not name. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, fear holding his tongue. He had faced blasters and blades, but this was different. This was death itself sitting in front of him. The girl leaned closer, her chains rattling. Leave before they see you care. The human blinked, shocked. Care? Why would they care? Her lips trembled. Because caring for me is dangerous too. They will destroy anyone who tries to help. The words shook him more than any curse could. Now the doubt grew into something heavier, something sharper. He did not know if she was cursed. He did not know if he would turn to dust, but he knew one thing. She was not a monster. And for the first time, he wondered if the real curse was not her touch, but the way the galaxy chose to fear and chain her. He stepped back, but his eyes did not leave hers. As he turned away, the guards mocked him, but he ignored their words. The doubt was carved into his mind now. Was he a fool for coming back? Or was he the only one who saw the truth? The question haunted him as he walked into the night, and he knew one thing for certain. He would return again. The third morning came, and the human returned again. By now the guards no longer shouted at him. They only laughed behind his back, calling him mad. The merchants whispered that the human had grown too curious, and soon he would be dust like the rest. But he ignored them all, his eyes fixed on the cage. Inside, the girl sat just as before, still, silent, thin as a shadow. Her pale skin caught the sunlight, making her look more like a ghost than a living being. Yet when his footsteps drew close, her head lifted, and her glowing eyes locked on him. Something stirred inside the human, a strange pull he could not explain. He should have feared her, but instead he felt drawn closer, as if her sadness called to him. He crouched near the bars, careful not to touch. For a moment they only stared at one, another, the market noise fading like a distant echo. Then, softly, she spoke, her voice carrying both fear and exhaustion. Why are you still here? She asked. Do you wish to die? The human shook his head, his voice low but steady. I don't want you to die alone, he said. The girl's lips parted, confusion flickering in her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Her people had abandoned her, strangers feared her. But this human, a complete outsider, spoke as if her life mattered. She pulled back slightly, her chains rattling against the cage floor. You don't understand, she whispered. Everyone who touched me turned to dust. They burned away. They screamed. Then nothing remained. Do you wish the same fate? The human leaned closer, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes unshaken. I believe you, he said. But I also believe you are not the curse they claim. Her breath caught, her fingers tightening around the chain. "No one has ever believed that," she murmured. "Not once. Not ever." Tears threatened her glowing eyes, though she tried to hide them. The human saw her pain, and for the first time he understood. Her curse was not just about death. It was about loneliness. Suddenly, a guard stepped forward, laughing. "Human, if you're so brave, go ahead. Touch her. Prove you are not afraid." The crowd gathered, cheering, hungry for spectacle. The human's jaw tightened, but he refused to move closer, not for their entertainment. Instead, he looked back at her and asked gently, "Do you want me to leave?" Her lips trembled, her eyes shining as she whispered, "No." The word came out so soft it was almost lost in the crowd's laughter. But the human heard it. It was the first time anyone had asked her what she wanted. The first time she admitted she did not want to be alone. The human stood facing the crowd, his voice sharp. "She is not your show. She is not your monster," he shouted. The guards mocked him. The merchants laughed. But his words left a ripple of silence before the jeers returned. He turned back to her, his eyes filled with determination. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "I will return again. And one day, I will find a way to break your chains." For a moment, her eyes widened, and she leaned closer, almost as if reaching out. Her chained hand trembled just inches from the bars, the glowing light of her skin reflecting on his face. The human's hand lifted slowly, hesitating in the air, so close that he could feel the strange heat from her body. Every voice in the market fell silent, all waiting, breath held, wondering if this would be the end of him. But at the very last moment, he stopped, pulling his hand back. The girl's breath shook as if she had been holding it, her chains clinking softly. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you not touch?" The human's eyes softened. "Because I don't want to prove the crowd right, I want to prove you right." The guards roared with laughter. The merchants shook their heads, calling him mad. But the girl lowered, her head hiding a smile she had not felt in years. For the first time, hope stirred within her, small but real. And as the human walked away into the fading light, she whispered to herself, Maybe he is different." The night was heavy with silence. The human lay on his bed in the inn, staring at the cracked ceiling. Sleep refused to come. His mind was chained to the image of the alien girl, her glowing eyes, her trembling hands, her broken whisper. The crowd's laughter still echoed in his ears, but louder than all of that was her voice. "No," when he had asked if she wanted him to leave. That single word burned into his chest like fire. He had choices, clear ones. He could leave this planet tomorrow, walk away from the cage and never see her again. He could survive, live safely, and forget the cursed girl who turned men to dust. That was the simple choice, the smart choice. Yet deep down, he knew he could not do it. The thought of leaving her in that cage, alone and suffering, felt worse than death itself. The next day, he returned once more. The guards no longer shouted. They simply waited for him like hunters waiting for prey. "Back again, human," one sneered. "Each step you take is closer to your grave." But the human ignored them, his eyes fixed only on her. She lifted her head when he arrived, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came, her throat too dry, her strength too weak. The human's chest tightened. He reached into his pack and carefully slid a flask of water across the ground, stopping just short of the bars. "Drink," he said softly. Her chained hands hesitated, trembling as if even this small kindness was dangerous. Slowly, she pulled the flask, closer, raising it to her lips. The crowd gasped as if even the sight of her drinking water was strange, unnatural. But the human smiled, watching her take in life drop by drop. "Why do you do this?" she asked, her voice still hoarse. "You know what I am." "You are not what they say," he answered, his tone steady. "You do not know that?" she whispered, her eyes lowering. You could die at any moment, why risk it? The human leaned closer, his voice sharp but calm. Because no one should live chained and alone, not while I still breathe. Her glowing eyes widened. For a second it seemed like she had forgotten her curse, forgotten her fear. But then the rattle of her chains reminded her, and she pulled back, her face twisted in pain. Stop, please, they will kill you, the guards, the masters. Even if my touch does not, they will. Her words cut through the noise of the market like blades. The human stood still, his jaw clenched. He knew she was right. The guards would not allow this to continue. Already he could feel their eyes on him, ready to strike at any sign of rebellion. But his choice was already made. That night he sat outside the inn, the stars shining above. The galaxy was vast, filled with worlds and wonders, yet all he could think about was one girl locked in a cage. He thought of her voice, her warning, her quiet strength hidden beneath the fear, and he made his choice, clear in his heart. He would not walk away. The next morning he returned once again, this time with food hidden in his cloak. He waited for the guards to turn away, then slid the bread carefully through the gap. Her hands shook as she touched, her eyes wide with disbelief. You could be punished for this, she whispered. Then let them punish me, he said firmly. I will not watch you starve. For a long moment she stared at him, her lips trembling as if she wanted to argue. But no words came. Instead, she lowered her head and began to eat slowly. And for the first time, he thought he saw the faintest glimmer of something new in her eyes. Not fear, not pain, but hope, fragile and small, yet alive. The human turned his head toward the guards, who were laughing and drinking far away. He knew the danger was real, but so was his decision. His path was set now. He would not abandon her. The choice had been made, not with his mind, but with his heart. And once a human heart decides, no force in the galaxy can break it. The days grew longer, and the human noticed how weak she had become. Her body was fragile, her wrists thin like sticks under the heavy chains. Every time he came to the market, he saw her head lower, her chest rising with shallow breaths. It was not the curse killing her now. It was hunger. It was thirst. It was time. The merchants never cared. They laughed when she collapsed. She cannot die. Not yet, they said. Her curse will keep her alive. Suffering is her fate. The guards tossed scraps far away from the cage, where she could never reach. To them, her suffering was entertainment, nothing more. The human clenched his fists, anger boiling in his chest. He had seen battlefields filled with cruelty, but this was worse. This was slow death, death by neglect, and no one cared. He knew if he tried too much, the guards would stop him, maybe kill him, but his heart refused to let him walk away. That night he prepared. He hid small pieces of food inside his coat, wrapped in cloth so no one would notice. When the stars covered the sky, he returned to the market, moving silently between the stalls. The guards were distracted, drinking and laughing, their eyes blind with pride. The human crouched low, his heart beat fast but steady. He slipped through the shadows until he reached her cage, her head lifted slowly, her eyes glowing faint in the moonlight. Why are you here again? She whispered, her voice weak as dust. He pulled out the food and slid it through the gap, careful not to let his skin touch hers. Her eyes widened, trembling hands pulling the bread close. She stared at it as though it were a miracle. Then, with shaking lips, she whispered, Why? The human looked at her firmly. Because I cannot let you die like this. Tears filled her glowing eyes, though she tried to hide them. No one has ever cared, she whispered. Not my people, not the guards, not anyone. Her voice broke. If you stay close, you will end like them, like the ashes. But he only shook his head, his voice steady. Let me choose my own fate, he said. I would rather risk dust than watch you starve. Her lips pressed shut, and for the first time, she ate while someone watched with kindness. Each bite seemed to bring her back from the edge. The human sat near the cage, his back against the bars, his eyes watching the sky. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It was filled with meaning, with unspoken words. Then, suddenly, voices echoed. The guards. The human froze, sliding back into the shadows. The girl's eyes widened, fear flashing in them, but she said nothing. She protected him with silence. The guards walked past, laughing. Still alive, cursed one. Tomorrow maybe you die. Their footsteps faded into the distance. The human exhaled slowly, returning. To her side, she stared at him, her voice a whisper like the wind. You should not come back. They will hurt you. They will kill you. The human leaned closer, his voice low. Then let them. But not before I help you. Her glowing eyes softened, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something more. But instead, she whispered, You are different, human. He smiled faintly. Different is what you need. That night, as the moon rose higher, he left her with a promise. Tomorrow I will bring more, he said. You will not suffer alone. She watched him vanish into the shadows, her heart beating with a strange feeling she had never known before. It was not fear. It was not pain. It was something softer, warmer, and for the first time in her life she hoped that tomorrow would come. The nights turned into a quiet routine. Every evening, when the guards drank themselves into a haze, the human would slip through the shadows. He brought food, water, and sometimes only his presence. At first, she barely touched the food in front of him, as if afraid even her hunger might harm him. But slowly, with each night, her trembling hands reached more easily and her eyes lifted sooner. They rarely spoke, but silence itself became their language. She would watch him sit outside her cage, his back resting against the cold iron bars. He would tilt his head toward the stars, speaking in a soft voice as if telling them his secrets. He told her of battles fought, of friends lost, of worlds seen and left behind. She listened, and though she spoke little, her glowing eyes carried questions. It was the first time she had been treated as more than a curse, the first time someone saw her as a living being. One night he asked gently, What is your name? Her lips parted, her throat tightened, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then, in a whisper barely louder than the wind, she spoke a sound, soft, broken, yet filled with meaning. It was her name, one she had not spoken in years. He repeated it quietly, and for the first time her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. You should not call me that, she whispered. It will bring you sorrow. But he shook his head. Names do not bring sorrow. Chains do. She looked at him long, her glowing eyes shining like moons in the dark. Her heart trembled with something unfamiliar, a warmth that scared her more than her curse. Why do you stay? She asked, her voice low. You risk everything, and for what? He turned toward her, his expression steady. Because no one deserves to face the night alone. Those words struck her deeper than any chain could. No one had ever cared whether she was alone or not. No one had ever stayed. The galaxy had given her silence, cruelty, and fear. But this one human gave her presence. And presence, she realized, was the strongest gift of all. The days, however, were harder. In the daylight, the guards mocked him, the merchants laughed, rumors spread that the human was cursed too, that soon his body would crumble, but he paid no mind. His nights with her mattered more than their words. He had faced weapons before, but never loneliness like hers. And in fighting it, he felt more alive than he ever had on the battlefield. One evening, as the sky turned purple with dusk, he saw her shiver in the cold, her chains rattled, her thin body shaking, and his chest tightened. Without thinking, he slipped off his worn cloak and slid it through the bars. Her eyes widened, her hand trembling as she touched the fabric. It was warm, heavy, carrying his scent, and for a moment she felt safe. Why give me this? She whispered. He smiled faintly. Because you need it more than I do. Her glowing eyes filled with tears, though she turned away quickly to hide them. It was not the cloak that warmed her. It was him, his choice to see her as more than a curse. And though her lips stayed silent, her heart whispered something she had never dared before: gratitude. That night, she whispered softly as he stood to leave. "Human," she called, her voice trembling. "Thank you." He froze, turning back, his eyes meeting hers. In that instant, the bond between them was no longer silence. It was trust. Fragile, yet unbreakable. And as he walked into the shadows, she clutched the cloak tight against her chest. For the first time, she did not feel cursed, she felt cared for. And that small truth changed everything inside her. The night was colder than any before. A storm raged across the alien sky, lightning flashing like blades through the clouds, thunder shaking the ground. Rain poured into the market, turning the dirt into mud, spilling through the cracks of the cages. The cursed girl sat shivering, her chains rattling as her thin body trembled, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dark storm. The human returned, soaked to the bone, his cloak heavy with water. He saw her shaking, saw her teeth clenched against the cold, and his heart ached. "Hold on," he whispered as he rushed to her side, kneeling near the cage. The guards were nowhere to be seen, drunk and hiding from the storm. The market abandoned, only the two of them remained, trapped together in the violent night. She looked at him with wide, glowing eyes, her voice broken. "You should not be here. The storm will kill you. My curse will kill you." But her words were weaker than the wind, her lips trembling. He leaned close, his voice firm yet soft. "Let the storm try. Let the curse try. But I will not let you freeze." The chains rattled, again as she curled into herself, her body too weak to fight the cold, her breath uneven. The human's hand lifted without thought, his fingers hovering near hers through the bars. The stories screamed in his head. "Touch her, and you will turn to dust," but his heart screamed louder. "Touch her, and you might save her." He hesitated, his hand shaking, every muscle tense. The rain hit the ground harder. Lightning lit the cage. Her glowing eyes locked on his hand. "Don't," she whispered, her voice more fear than command. "I cannot lose you too." Her words tore through him, not because of the curse, but because of the pain in her voice. She did not fear his death for herself. She feared it for him, and then he made the choice. Slowly, carefully, his hand reached through the bars, his fingers brushing against hers. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Lightning cracked across the sky. Thunder rolled. Every story said he should vanish into ash. Every whisper said he should crumble into dust. But nothing happened. Her glowing eyes widened in shock, her trembling, lips parting. You are still alive," she breathed, her voice filled with disbelief. Her cold hand shook under his, yet she did not pull away. Instead, tears welled in her eyes, falling silently onto their joined hands. No one has ever touched me and lived," she whispered. The human's grip tightened gently, his voice steady. "Then let me be the first." The storm raged louder, but in that moment, neither of them cared. She felt warmth for the first time in years. Real warmth, not the burning of chains or the fire of fear, but the warmth of another living being choosing her. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her curse, her prison, her fear, all of it seemed to vanish under his touch. And she wept, quietly, brokenly, as if her soul had been waiting for this moment all her life. The human held her hand firmly, his eyes locked with hers. "I told you," he said softly. "You are not what they believe." She sobbed, shaking her head. "Then why did so many die?" His jaw tightened. "Because they wanted to test a curse, not save a life. They reached for you to prove themselves. I reached for you because I believe in you." The rain began to slow. The thunder moved farther away, but their hands stayed locked, their bond unbroken for the first time. The girl felt like more than a prisoner, more than a weapon, more than a curse. She felt alive, and she whispered through her tears, "You are not afraid." The human smiled faintly. "I was, but not anymore." The storm faded. The guards, still absent in the silence that followed, one truth became clear. The curse was not stronger than the bond they had just formed. And as he finally pulled his hand back, her glowing eyes stayed fixed on him, filled with something new. Not fear, not sorrow, but hope. The storm had passed, but the human could not forget the feeling of her hand in his. He had expected fire, pain, or the sudden end of his life. But instead he felt warmth, trembling and fragile, yet real. It was the touch of someone who had never been held, never been believed, never been loved. The next day, the market returned to life. Merchants shouted, guards barked orders, but whispers spread quickly. "They say the human touched her," one alien muttered. "He should be dust, yet he walks alive," another hissed. The crowd's eyes followed him with suspicion, fear, and anger. The guards confronted him, their leader snarling, "What did you do, human? What trick kept you alive?" The human stood tall, his voice calm but firm. "No trick, no curse, only lies you chose to believe." The guard spat on the ground. "Careful, human, you're bold. Tongue may end your life." That night he returned to her cage again. Her glowing eyes lifted at once, filled with something new, wonder, confusion, and a fragile joy. "You came back," she whispered. He crouched down, smiling faintly. "I told you I would, and I told you I would not die." She trembled, her chains rattling softly. "But why are you different?" she asked. "Why do you live when others turn to ash?" He frowned, his mind turning with questions. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I intend to find out." For days he watched closely. He studied the ashes near her cage. He listened to the guards' drunken boasts. And slowly a truth began to rise from the shadows. He overheard one guard whisper to another, "The device works on everyone but him. Strange. Very strange." The other guard grunted, "Keep it quiet. The masters do not want the truth revealed." Taquillos. Human's blood ran cold, a device. It was not magic, not a curse, but a weapon. Hidden within the cage, invisible to the girl. It released a wave that killed any living being who drew too close. That was why they turned to dust. That was why she was left untouched, blamed for their deaths. The human clenched his fists, fury rising. She had not been a curse at all. She had been a prisoner of a cruel trick. That night he returned. Kneeling by the bars, her eyes searched his, desperate for answers. "Tell me," she whispered. "Why do you live? Why only you?" He exhaled slowly, his voice heavy with the truth. "Because the curse is not yours. It never was. They built a device inside this cage, a weapon that kills anyone who comes near, but it does not work on humans." Her lips parted, her body trembling. "You mean—" "It was never me," she breathed. Tears welled in her glowing eyes, falling onto her hands. "All these years, all the deaths, all the hatred, and it was not me." Her voice cracked into a sob, heavy with grief and relief. The human reached through the bars, his hand brushing hers again. "No, it was never you, they lied. They made you believe it, but you are not a curse. You are a victim." She collapsed against the bars, her chains clinking, her voice shaking. "I thought I was death itself. I thought my touch destroyed. I thought I was unworthy of life." The human's jaw tightened, his grip firm on her trembling hand. "Listen to me," he said sharply. "You are not death. You are not a curse. You are life, and you will not die in chains." For the first time she wept without shame. The weight of years fell from her shoulders as she clutched his hand. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with both sorrow and hope. "If what you say is true, then I have been nothing but a lie," she whispered. The human shook his head, his voice steady. "No, you are not the lie. They are, and I swear, I will, tear their lie apart." In that moment, under the stars and shadows, the truth bound them together stronger than chains ever could. The curse had been broken. Not by magic, but by revelation. And now, the human knew one thing clearly. Her freedom would come, no matter the cost. The truth had burned into the human's heart like fire. The girl was not a curse, not a monster, but a prisoner trapped by lies and machines. Every death blamed on her had been caused by the hidden weapon inside the cage. And now that he knew, he could not let her stay chained another day. The market roared with life that morning, but his mind was calm and sharp. He walked through the stalls pretending to be just another traveler, but inside his coat he carried tools, small, sharp, and dangerous. Not weapons of war, but tools. For breaking chains, he had decided. Tonight she would be free, or he would die trying. When night fell, the guards gathered in the tavern, their laughter loud, their cups spilling with drink. The human slipped into the shadows once more, his steps quick but silent. The rain from the storm still left the ground wet, his boots sinking into the mud. He reached the cage, and there she was, sitting with her head lowered, her glowing eyes, faint in the dark. When she saw him, her lips parted, her voice breaking. "You came back. I told you I would," he whispered, kneeling close. He pulled the tools from his coat, his eyes scanning the heavy locks. Her eyes widened in fear. "What are you doing?" "Freeing you," he said simply, his voice steady. She shook her head, her chains rattling. "No, you don't understand. If they catch you, they will kill you. If they see me free, they will kill us both." The human's jaw tightened, his hands already working on the lock. "Then let them try," he said. "I would rather die fighting than leave you here." The lock groaned under his effort, the metal scraping. She gripped the bars, her glowing eyes filled with terror and hope. Every second felt like a heartbeat stretched too far. Then, with a sharp crack, the first lock broke. She gasped, her chains loosening around her wrist. Her hand lifted slightly, trembling as if she could not believe it was real. "No one has ever tried," she whispered. "Not once, not ever." He looked at her firmly, his voice calm. "Then let me be the first." But footsteps echoed suddenly in the distance, guards stumbling out of the tavern. The human froze, pressing himself against the cage. The girl's eyes widened in fear. "Hide," she whispered. But he stayed still, his body shielding her. Two guards passed by, their drunken voices slurred, still cursed, still chained, still alive. One laughed. "She will rot until the end of time." Their laughter faded as they walked away. The human exhaled slowly, then returned to the lock. This time faster, his hands steady, his heart burning with determination. Another lock snapped, then another. Her chains fell heavy, to the ground. One by one her body trembled, weak from years of captivity. But her spirit began to rise. "Why?" she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Why risk everything for me?" He looked at her, his voice low but fierce. "Because you were never the curse, and because no one deserves to live as if they are." The final lock cracked. The chain slithered to the floor. For the first time in years, she was free. Her glowing eyes widened, her hands trembling, her breath sharp as if she could not believe it. I am free," she whispered, her voice breaking with awe and fear. The human smiled faintly. "Yes, and you will never be caged again." But the sound of heavy boots shook the ground. The guards had returned, their torches glowing, their voices sharp. The human's hand reached for her, pulling her close. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice steady like stone. The girl clung to him, fear and hope battling inside her chest. And together, under the rising torches of the guards, the first step of their escape began. The guards rushed into the market with torches blazing, their boots striking the wet ground. The sound of chains falling from the cage had not gone unheard. "Stop!" the human, one of them roared. "He is freeing the cursed one." The crowd scattered, merchants running, slaves ducking for cover, fear spreading like fire. The human stood tall in front of her, his body shielding her glowing form. His eyes were sharp, his fists clenched, but inside he knew the odds. Too many guards, too many weapons, but still he would not back away. The girl gripped the bars from inside the cage, trembling, her glowing eyes wide with terror. "Go," she whispered. "Save yourself before it is too late." But he shook his head, his voice firm. "Not without you." The guards laughed, lifting their spears, their leader sneering. "You think you broke her chains, human. You think she is free. She will never be free. She is death itself." The human's jaw tightened, his voice cutting like steel. "No, she is not death, she is life, and you fear her because you built lies to hide the truth," the guards charged. But the human moved first. With the strength of desperation, he swung a broken chain he had pulled from the cage, striking the first guard down. The girl gasped, her heart pounding as she saw him fight for her. Each move was reckless, each strike fueled by something greater than survival. It was fueled by belief. But still, they were too many. He was pushed back. Blood ran down his arm where a blade had cut, his breath heavy, his strength fading. She reached out through the bars, her voice breaking. "Stop, please, they will kill you." The human staggered, turning to her with a faint smile. "Then, let me die knowing I tried." Her tears fell freely, glowing against her pale cheeks, and in that moment, something inside her broke. Not the curse, not the chains, but the silence she had lived with all her life. She slammed her fists against the bars, her voice rising louder than thunder. "My name," she cried. "Say my name." The human froze, staring at her. She whispered it again. The name she had buried for years, the name no one had spoken. Her true name, soft yet powerful, trembling yet alive. He repeated it, his voice steady, clear, unshaken. The market silenced. The guards froze. Even the torches seemed to flicker, weaker. Her glowing eyes widened, her body trembling as his voice carried her name into the air. In that moment, she was not the cursed girl, not the prisoner, not the weapon. She was herself again. Strength surged through her, a fire she had forgotten. The hidden device in the cage hummed to life. But it crackled, sparking against the force of her awakening. It had been built to trap her. But hearing her name from his lips shattered its hold. The weapon died in a shower of sparks, the lie breaking with it. The guard stumbled back in fear, shouting, "She is awake, she is not cursed, she is—" But their words were drowned by the chaos. The human staggered to her cage, his hand pressing against the bars, his voice low but fierce. "You are not theirs. You are not a curse. Are you?" Her hands shot forward, gripping his, their touch glowing under the moonlight. Tears streamed from her eyes as she whispered, "All my life I thought I was nameless, worthless, cursed. But you spoke my name. You gave me back myself." The human smiled faintly through the pain. "And I will speak it again and again until you never forget it." The crowd that had once feared her now watched in silence. Some saw her glow and trembled, but others saw her tears and whispered, "She is not a curse. She is alive." Her chest rose with a deep breath, her heart pounding, her voice steady for the first time. "I am not death," she said firmly. "I am life, and I will never be chained again." The market burned with chaos, torches falling, merchants running, guards shouting. But in the center of it all stood the human and the alien girl, their hands locked, their eyes unshaken. The device that had trapped her for years lay in broken pieces, sparks fading into the mud. For the first time she was free, not only in body but in spirit. The guards regrouped, their leader roaring, "Kill them both, the human and the cursed one, do not let them escape." They rushed forward, weapons raised, but the girl stepped out of her cage, her chains falling away like dust. Her glowing eyes blazed brighter than ever, her voice shaking the air. "No more," she cried. "I am not your curse." The crowd gasped as she stood tall beside the human. For years they had only seen her curled in chains, trembling, silent. But now she walked forward, her head high, her steps steady. The human stood at her side, battered, bleeding, but strong. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice firm. She nodded, her glowing hands clutching his tightly. The guards hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. For so long, they had believed the lie, believed she would turn them to dust. But now the truth was clear. Their fear turned to confusion, their courage fading. Still, the leader roared again, driving them forward. The human braced himself, ready to fight to his last breath, but before blades could strike, the girl lifted her voice, not with fear, not with sorrow, but with strength. You chained me, you cursed me, you made me believe I was death, but I am alive, and I will not fear you. Her words cut through the night, and the guards faltered, their steps slowing, their torches shaking. The human pulled her toward the edge of the market. Run, he urged, we can make it to the hills. She stumbled, her legs weak from years of chains, but his arm held her steady. Together they ran through the muddy streets, dodging crates and broken stalls. The crowd parted, some still fearing her, but others whispered, she is not cursed, she is free. The human freed her. At last they reached the edge of the city, the dark hills stretching before them. The guards gave chase, their shouts echoing behind. But the human's grip never faltered. Every step was pain, every breath fire. But he pushed forward, for he knew this was no longer about escape, it was about giving her a life she had been denied. When they finally stopped, hidden in the shadow of the hills, the girl collapsed to her knees. Her body shook, her breath ragged, but her glowing eyes looked up at him filled with wonder. You stayed, she whispered. You fought for me, you gave me back my name. The human knelt beside her, his voice soft. I did not free you, you freed yourself, I only reminded you who you are. Her trembling hand reached out, resting against his chest. I was untouchable, she whispered. No one could come near without turning to dust, but you held me, and you live. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she added, you are my proof that I was never cursed. I was only forgotten. The human took her hand in his, firm and steady. Then remember this, he said. From this day forward, you will never be alone. You belong with me. Her lips parted, her voice breaking into a sob. But this time, the tears were not of sorrow. They were of freedom. She leaned into him, her forehead resting against his shoulder. Her voice, soft as the wind. No one touched me without dying until you reached out, and now I live. The stars stretched across the night sky above them, endless and bright. Behind them, the city was still in chaos, but ahead lay the open galaxy. She was no longer a prisoner, no longer a cursed child, no longer nameless. She was alive, and she was his. Together they walked into the dark hills side by side, hand in hand. Their bond no longer built on fear, but on trust. And though the galaxy would still whisper her name as a curse, she knew the truth. Her voice echoed softly, in the night, I am not death, I am life, and with you I am free.